We got over here, you got Maggio's Pizza, you got the laboratory, and right next to the laboratory in this corner, you got this strange little spot that's unmarked. And what's going on here? Well, you got something called the test tube. Anyway, but the reason why we're here is I want to show you this plan on what you're exactly going to do with this tube and what this test is all about. Alright, so we got bands. There's so many bands. Hardcore bands. Too many bands. We got punk bands. We got metal bands. We got emo, ska, more metal bands, hip hop, pop punk, bands, ska band. Oh my god, there's so many bands. More bands. There's another band. Anybody can go next door to the laboratory and you buy a guitar, you buy your drum set, and you may or may not take some lessons to learn how to play it. So you got to get some stuff, you got to know how to play. Anybody can do that. It takes a little bit of time, but then after that you're ready to start a band. You got to get some friends, and then you can join all these other bands. There's so many bands. Do we really need more bands? Then you got to have band practice. You got to get good. At band practice, you can go to the bins, you can do it at your parents' house, you might even be able to practice at the test tube or some of these other places. Or you could hook up with another band and see if you can share their practice space. Anyway, you got to practice. If the practice isn't working out, you got to go back to the drawing board and start a new band. Maybe it's another member, maybe you just don't have the space, maybe you don't have money, maybe none of your parents will let you do it. Or you could just practice and then just go play a show. But then after that, nothing's going to come of it, so you're going to have to go back to have more band practice and you're going to play more shows. You're going to wonder why all these other bands are getting past you and getting it to Michael Jackson famous before you do. So before you play the show, it might be a good idea to make a recording and get some merch. You should definitely practice before you go to record. Anyway, you have the recordings, you have the merch, you have your t-shirts, you have all that stuff. And you set it up at this table when you come in on the night of a show. And so you perform, and there's a bunch of other bands too. Hopefully some of the people who came to see these other bands like you, and they buy some of your merch, maybe they buy some of your recordings, and then you go home and you go back to band practice and you have something to shoot for. Because maybe later on you're going to go play more shows, maybe the people want more recordings, maybe they want a different colored t-shirt. So anyway, you can't just play at the test tube forever. Eventually you're going to have to make a better recording than you did before. You're going to have to make more merch, better merch. You're going to have to promote the stuff. And you're going to have to go on tour. But you can't really go on tour until you pass the test of the tube. Look at all these bands. We got so many bands. And so how do you know which bands are ready to move on to Michael Jackson famous or not? So we got a scoreboard here. Like look over here. Wow. Hold Your Own. What do we got? Endless Sacrifice looks like they're happening. Forever Broken is on their way to Michael Jackson famous. Dave Earl Experience. I don't know why he's bringing only 3 people to the shows. He's got to go back there and I don't know what his deal is. I don't want to single him out. I mean, as you can see on these other things, there's a lot of, sometimes these people are from out of town and it's hard. Yeah, oh yeah, here's the other thing. When you go on tour and you go to the next level and you go play all these other places, you're going to be that band from out of town, so you're going to bring nobody. So you got to be respectful to touring bands, and you got to know that sometimes they're not going to, the bands from out of town aren't going to bring as many people. A lot of these bands are from this town, like No Such Luck and No Such Noise. A lot of the people that they bring live around here. And Tsunami Rising as well, they could be on to some other thing, So over here, again with the David O Experience, bringing over 3 people, got Forever Broken, and the Sacrifice till Death. Okay. Let me see what else we got. Wow, Hollow Lies, very impressive. It's about the money. I mean, this was a charity event. This one was good. Sometimes it costs a lot of money to keep these kind of places open. This is real estate, so you got to go. Eventually, later on down the line, a label is going to need to think that they can make money off you. So if you work for a record label and you see a scoreboard such as this, are you more likely to give a contract to Sagicacia? Or are you more likely to give a contract to Take Hold? That's why these scoreboards are serious. It's not so much about the money, it's for your reputation. You got to build your reputation. You need to get the other venues and the other bands and all the people that saw you telling everybody they know about how big the show was. And then before you know it, you're going to have every band wanting to play with No Such Noise. They'll be like, oh, I want to play the same night as No Such Noise. I don't want to play the same night as Absence of Worry. No offense, guys. I like that band, Absence of Worry. I want to play the same night as Kathy Santoni. You know, like, some bands have a better name than others in the eyes of the venues and the other bands and the out-of-state. It's all politics, man. Like, it's all the, it's a popularity contest, just like high school. But you can win. You can do this. As long as you know, when you start the band, you do it right, you get the right team, make sure you practice, you make a good recording, and you got to bring some merch before you go to the show. Because what happens if people see you at the show and they like it, and they don't go home with anything with your name on it? They're going to forget all about you. Look at all these other bands. Why are they going to care about you if there's so many other bands? Why do we need another band? Why do we want anybody to go buy more musical equipment and take music lessons and start another band? Do we really need it? So you got to be good. You got to be much better than you ever were before. So you go to the test tube, and here's the test. So, you know, some of these bands I would recommend to move on to the next level. Like Hollow Lies, they shouldn't play at the test tube forever. They're ready to move on to other things. So, pretty soon they're going to make a much better recording. They're going to get some more merch. We're going to promote the shit out of them. We're going to go to tour, and then they're going to go to tour. They're going to drive around the country and play all these other places. Maybe for no one, maybe for a lot of people, I don't know. But along the way, you got to build the reputation. You got to take the contact venue of all these things, the other bands, and then you get the other bands that you meet. You got to be cool with everybody. You can't just play the show and then leave. You got to hang out with the other bands. The other bands, these guys are your team. This is not your competition. This is your culture. This is your community here. The other bands, these are other people who care about it just as much as you do. And they're more of your family than anybody else that you're going to see on the road. So be nice to the other bands. Be respectful to the venues. Make sure you get their number. Make sure you know if you play an awesome place and you like it, you got to be able to come back a year later and play them again. Because if you're lucky, if you're good, and I think somebody like Kathy Santoni is, then when you're out of state, you'll pick up some people. You got to make sure you get their numbers. So when you come back on the road 6 months later, you can get them to come to the show and bring their friends. So anyway, you're building your reputation by going on tour. You go to play all these other places, and you're just meeting people every night. You're meeting people, you're talking to people, you're going to go here, you're going to go drive here, you're going to drive here. Maybe some of these are going to lead to other shows, and you're just going to keep on doing this indefinitely. Some bands tour forever. They just keep doing it. Ask I Call Fives how long they've been on tour, but they're making it happen. They're doing it. They're building their reputation. You know, you keep selling the merch, you build your press kit, it's an endurance test. Because if you can't make it through this, if you can't even get on tour in the first place, then why do you think some label would waste their time and money messing with your stuff? You're going to end up going broke when you play the money game. So anyway, back down to here. So everything goes all right, you build a reputation. Before you know it, you're selling out, you're playing places all the time. Are you ready to sell out? This is a decision you have to make. I personally would not want to sell out. I'd just rather go on tour forever and just give it directly to the fans, you know, make like an independent label, maybe sell the records on your own, and then you can die happy like that. But if you want to be famous, you want to get to Michael Jackson famous, you're silly, you want to play the money game, well, you're going to have to get a label for that, but you need to get a good lawyer, or else the label is going to give you a bad deal and you're going to end up in debt to the label because they end up giving you an unsecured loan. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So if you're ready to sell and you're sure, and this is more of a philosophical question than I mean, like, do you have it in your mind? Are you ready to sell yourself and like really just like, you know, you remember where you came from. You gave, you know, when you were anybody and you bought that stuff and you got those music lessons, remember how much you cared about it and how the, you know, these dreams that you had. You know, when you get up to this level, it's not really about that anymore. It's about business, you know, and the business, the hard line is this. In the business, Jaded Rescue isn't going to get a contract before Hollow Lies will. A Century Collapsed will get a contract before the Bering Sea will. So anyway, some guy with a lot of money has to be convinced that he can make more money from pimping your band out. So that's why you got to get a good lawyer before you go to do that. And by the way, you don't have to do all this stuff if you want to be independent. This is completely unnecessary, going down the ready to sell thing. But a lot of kids are all thinking about, I want to get signed, I want to play the money game. You don't know what you're getting into. But if you want to do that, get a good lawyer, and then you get to the labels. Okay, so then it's time to play the money game. And if you do it well, maybe you'll be like Lady Gaga. And if you don't do it well, then you're going to end up nobody knowing who you are. You're going to be in debt. You're going to be broke, you're going to be homeless, you're going to be hungry, tired, old, and lame. No one's going to care about you. And that's if you don't play the money game well. if you play the money game. Well, you get over here. I don't think you should play the money game. I really don't. I think right here it should stop. You should just forget about the money game. Just play music. This is a test. It's just, you just can't keep playing over here over and over and over again and think that it's going to happen on your own. You got to show these guys that you are a band that is, oh man, look at all these bands. There's so many bands. Oh my God, look at all these bands. Do we really need more bands? Alright, so like out of all these bands, you know, which ones are good and which ones aren't from the business perspective. The test tube, it's a, alright, we call it the test tube because it's right next door to the laboratory, but you got to think of the test like this. You're being graded, man. So do the best. Try to make yourself look good on the scoreboard. So before you get to the money, you're not even going to get to the money without other people putting in a good word for you. So be nice to the venues, be nice to the other bands, and give the fans what they want. Oh, by the way, anybody can do this. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And that's what we're going to be going on at the test tube. Thanks a lot, and be cool to Chuck. He's running the place now, and I don't know who this guy. Anyway, thanks for coming. I'll talk to you soon.